Hey, hi.
Hello.
So having kind of opened a really beautiful sacred space and felt into the reasons we're here, maybe it would be a perfect way to start to just share a little bit about what this work is and how you came to do it.
So, when I was in my mother's tummy, she was apparently about 3.5 months pregnant with me, and she was in a kind of car accident, and they took her to the hospital, and they said, well, if you were pregnant, you're not now. And so basically they couldn't find a heartbeat or a pulse for me in her tummy. And so my mum was a real kind of spiritual truth seeker. And she really had a lot of faith and a lot of love. In those days, it was all about spreading love, back in the 60s. And so my mum just totally trusted her own intuition and knew that I wasn't dead. And so she wouldn't let them do any procedures on her because she got transferred to another hospital, basically. And they said, okay, you've had a shock. We need to do this. And she wouldn't let them. So 2 months later, I came back online. My heartbeat was there, my pulse was there, I carried on growing and was born after being in the womb for nearly 11 months. Yeah, and that's quite shocking to a lot of people because they think, how can a baby exist for more than 9 months in a body? Well, I tell you, I'm not the only one that's been in the womb for more than 9 months and is, born healthy and normally. So that's one thing in itself. But what it meant for me was that place that I was in for those 2 months, wherever I was, kind of my life kept tugging me back to that experience, really quite profoundly, and I didn't understand it for a while. And it was like not being in my body and yet not being dead, being somewhere in between, and feeling really frightened and really stuck about that. And I've always had issues about feeling connected to my body, that I was very scared I couldn't relate to being in this weird container, and I didn't feel like I belonged on Earth. I couldn't relate to everybody else. I was hypersensitive, hypersensitive, super empathic, more than I realised, was picking up on people's thoughts and all the things that they didn't even remember themselves, I was picking up on. And that just made it really hard to be in the world for me. So, and then, being in this transition state, it's somewhere in between life and death. I felt more connected to spirit, but yet I couldn't go back to spirit. I wasn't dying, I wasn't leaving, I was still here. And I really had to make sense of that. So I suppose that my quest for my own healing brought me to a place where I developed my senses and my intuitive gifts, where I could serve and help other people, and therefore serve and help and heal myself.
So where did the umbrella title or the sense of soul readings come from?
To be honest, I didn't know what else to call it. I played with this for a couple of years, and I don't know. Soul reading, I guess, when I see with my eyes and I hear with my ears, and I'm empathic and intuitive and feeling all these things, but when I use my hands, this was the key thing that really made it come online for me and made me really acknowledge something was happening that I could trust in, that was real, that wasn't me imagining things or, being crazy. When I put my hands on a person's energy field, the invisible force around the body, I could feel the energies and then read them. So it's like I can put my hands on the memory. I call the soul a library for everything that's ever happened to your particular little drop of original source energy, whatever that means to you or anybody else, God, the universe, I don't know what you want to call it, but your infinite little personal, unique soul essence energy. It's a library. Everything that's ever happened to your soul is recorded there in energetic information. So when I put my hand on your energy field, it's like opening time capsules, it's opening memories. And for me, it's like stepping into the movie. I'm in there with those characters, I'm in there with that part of you that's been somehow stuck and trapped in that period of time. And so it seemed like that's what to call it, I'm reading your soul. Which sounds really scary for so many people. thinking, what are you, what are you picking up? And I can understand that. That must feel really weird.
So what are some of the benefits of people being able to have their soul read? How does that actually translate into benefits in the world today?
Yeah, well, it would be pretty rubbish, wouldn't it, if you just came along and I just told you, hey, you've got this trauma unresolved and this trauma unresolved, and by the way, in your past life you were hung and murdered, and, you know, off you go, see you, bye. That would be pretty mean. So, fortunately, just through practice and tapping in and listening to guidance, you know, you could call that my higher self guidance, my angels guiding me, you know, whatever. And there are a number of labels I could attach to that. But essentially, I listened and was guided by something that gave me tools. And I was taught ways of, and means of, once seeing these things, of then actually resolving them, bringing that traumatic, unresolved, you know, memory or, you know, time capsule or information back into harmony, releasing it from that traumatized state. And a key factor in this was for about 2 years, I had this being sitting by my shoulder here, just telling me what to do and teaching me about the power of acknowledging and witnessing somebody and their pain and their suffering, and really seeing it and really hearing it and feeling it with all my senses, full witnessing. That in itself has an effect that's just incredible. And then he taught me all these other things about love and forgiveness and how energy works and how to, you know, I'm not one of these people that pulls it out and moves it around by my will, by what I think should happen, because I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. So I was listening to this being, and then after a couple of years I was in a session with someone, and it's like the cloak came off and Archangel Michael was there, and I didn't even know about archangels and Archangel Michael, but it just was, you know, and I was like, wow! So that's what was teaching me for a long time and showing me how to then bring those traumas and unresolved memories and things that happen to people into a state of healing.
So it sounds almost like you're describing it being brought into the light where it can be witnessed.
Definitely.
And then what? Transformed? Transfigured?
Totally and utterly transformed. Totally and utterly transformed. It's like going into the back cupboards and seeing all the things that your conscious mind did not want to or couldn't deal with. Maybe you were 2 years old, maybe you were in the womb, maybe it was before you even came into this body. You don't remember those things. They're somewhere in the back closets of your mind, but they're still there. And they're having this influence, they're having this constant effect. And most of the time we don't realise why we're being affected or what's affecting us. We just know, I don't feel good, and every time I do this, the same patterns happen. I'm falling in the same hole again and again. You know, I'm trying to do things differently, but I'm getting the same results. And or there's illness happening, or mental illness, or any number of things. And people are like, but I'm trying my best. People want to be conscious. Mostly they want to do something that helps themselves and see things. But there's a whole load of other influences that we're just not aware of. Mm. And it's not our fault that we're not aware of them. So what's, for me, is really useful is to be able to see those things. I mean, for me, it's really easy to look at you or somebody else and see those things. And then go, hey, let's bring this out of the cupboard. Let's polish it up. Let's clean it. Let's put it where it needs to go. Understand it, love it, integrate it, not keep it separate from you or hidden. Let's bring it in and love it. And then just something incredible happens all by itself.
So it sounds like a key piece of it is forgiveness, self-love, illumination. Is there anything else that is particularly key? Like birth seems to be an overriding metaphor for everything you do.
It does, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and whether it's always important to travel back to an experience of birth, or is that where a lot of things happen?
So when I'm doing a reading with somebody, at some point, maybe not in the first reading, but if we have a few, at some point we're going to see how that person was born, how it was for them in the womb, and how they were conceived. And even prior to the conception, of the energy of both the parents, the intentions, their situation, the love energy between the mother and the father basically is the energy of birth that you come in on. That's the vibration that you then enter into, is that space between the parents. So you can imagine, their relationship is like a pot, and what each one of them is putting into that pot becomes the ingredients of you. And for some people that's pretty horrific. It is. There's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain in that. And that's even before you've come into the womb, and started to grow. So, and this is the memory of this, your conception and your birth, or your birth is in the tummy, and your conception is in the sacral center, lower down above the pubic bone, and your birth memory is all stored down in your base center. So you can imagine with that much unconsciousness or trauma, or, I can't feel right in my body, or I don't feel completely loved, or I don't feel completely safe and held or wanted, or, any number of things, means that the energy from here down is just going to be blocked. So people aren't really sitting in their true power. They're not feeling accepted or accepting of the world or themselves. They're not feeling connected to their true essence of who they are, conceived to be by divinity. Because that parental conception, which is often the conception of the mind, more than it is absolute love, we're just human, we're not perfect. That gets imprinted as well. So you kind of have the divine essence and the human conception on top of the other. So the thing is if for a person to really be in their body, it means clearing those energies of the womb, of the belly, of the child, of the mother, of the conception, which is your own creativity center as well, often being really blocked by that conception memory, and then deep down in the base center, that birth memory, where you really need to anchor into your own base essence, your own, people say sit in the seat of your power, and it really is sitting in your seat in that base center, like a king or a queen in your own essence, in your own beautiful fragrance of who you are. And we can't do that when it's all blocked up and all these other things are in the way. So for me, when we clear those energies and we travel to those places, then someone can anchor into their body for the first time, So many people's energies are not connecting properly down through the base center and into the earth. It's amazing. Even people you'd think were really grounded, not really, they're just heavy. Often it's very blocked energy that makes them seem grounded because it's heavy. That's actually not the state of being that we have the potential to be. So for me, that birthing and that conception and all of that stuff around our initial creation and gestation is hugely important to how we live the rest of our lives. It's literally our foundation.
It sounds amazing because a lot of people would be familiar with chakra, the chakra system, and it sounds like what you're talking about is, it relates to the lower chakras, those of purpose and self-support and finances and purpose and creativity and the sexual area.
Yeah,
all of that kind of stuff that can be murky.
Purpose is more up here.
Okay.
Purpose has to do with the higher heart and with passion and desire, which is up here. That's something else.
So is this more bringing it into the world, actually being able to birth ideas and have them actually be in the world?
It's the mother energy, it's the divine feminine energy of creation and compassion and creativity. Not that creativity is, only for females, but it's the feminine energy that's in all of us. That soft nurturing, holding,
So it sounds like there could be a mixture of energies involved in someone's conception, and it could range from blissfully rolling around on the tour in Glastonbury on a prescribed night to something at the other end of the spectrum. What can people expect if they come along and they're a bit concerned or maybe fearful that they may have had a less than loving conception, or they're just a bit uncertain? Do they have any cause to be nervous about the actual process of remembering or releasing that?
Well, let's understand this first of all. There is always unconscious things at work, even in the most loving parents, and most people are conceived in love, but there's always unconscious elements coming in. So no one is conceived perfectly by perfect parents. Nobody. Not that, maybe somebody in the world, but not anyone that I've ever seen, which is a lot of people, I suppose. In terms of it's actually, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people, and to be honest, it's a really gentle experience. It's not like you're going to have to relive all that trauma and